Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone here. Hey, Gulag's here. This is kind of an impromptu. It really wasn't impromptu, but my life has made it impromptu. God, is today only Friday?
Yeah, today's Friday.
Friday.
That's it.
So just yesterday, which I seem like I've lived 3 days in that time period, around a World Blockchain Roundtable, which me and Dave are on Thursdays, and I talk about all the time. Everyone should check it out. It is a super cool show, a lot of fun, and it's just cool. It's the only real word for it. But we set up for him to come on today, and us to have this clash because he's a crazy liberal.
Yeah, it was actually set up kind of impromptu, even on the show. I think I remember we just at the end of the show, I said, "Yeah, let's get to it right now." I brought my calendar up on the second monitor and said, "Cool, let's go." I think we were still live.
Having somebody on, yeah, we were like, "Dave, you might come on." And you're like, "Sure." So like, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I was happy. I was watching what you put up this morning too about your ordeal last night that you went through with the power company or the power service anyway. And how long that took to get back. And then I heard you say you were a socialist now, so I don't know if we can even do this.
I never said that. I was on the show yesterday, and I said that because of Elon Musk, I have realized that I do have some socialist.
I know. I'm just messing with you. And that was a good conversation, though.
My son used to talk about that. He's like, you believe in socialism. You believe in food stamps for people and things. I was like, and Joe made the perfect point. When I said it, if I feel like if the government's taking all of our money, that they should handle some of these things. And if they're taking as much as they're taking, they should. And I don't think that anyone in any Western country, especially, and I say that because I think if you're like, I don't think there's any Western countries that are like really hurting. I mean, there's certain countries that are. I mean, but that's because government is stupid and wasteful. But I don't think that anyone living in those countries should ever be denied treatment for something or should die for a disease that they could be treated for.
Yeah, it's possible, but the money's not there. I'm glad you brought that up about what Joe said, because I think that's kind of the point that I sort of roll with a lot of the times is, I'd rather not pay taxes, right? Like, sure, if I can wave a magic wand, make everything how I want. I don't want to pay taxes either, and I would rather pay for my own health insurance. I've experienced, government healthcare insurance. I'm a service-connected veteran, and I have VA disability compensation, which means I get my healthcare for free from the VA, which is great until it's not. So,
you've been. I mean, the VA has changed a lot in the past 3 administrations, really.
It really has, yeah, up and down too, like all over the place.
There's been a lot of talk about it where people just didn't know. Like, I never knew that you couldn't fire certain people. That they once they got that government job in the VA, they couldn't be fired, and like that was a big thing. That was, I think was it Trump or it may have been back in Bush, but there were certain people like, I'm going to make it so that you can fire someone at the VA if they don't do a good job taking care of our veterans. And I was like, what? How the hell did it get to where you couldn't fire them? And then, I mean, my stepdad is former military, and a lot of my friends, are, and the massive waits that they used to have to go through. I think there's been a lot of improvements when it comes to the VA in the past couple of years.
There definitely has been, and I mean, honestly, some of it was under the Trump administration. There was a big fire lit to sort of like, we had these fucking lines, man. I say line. It was like 6 months long, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, I've got this thing, and I know that I'm qualified to get it fixed here, right, without anything out of pocket. When can we do that? And the answer was like 2 to 6 months away, depending on what it was. And that was the 2 months away was literally just to get an appointment to see a doctor. That was just like primary care, go see like annual checkup. Haven't done one this year or in 4 years. Maybe I should do that. Yeah, 2 to 6 months. so nobody went. They're just like, fuck it. I don't know what I'm doing in 2 months.
He has a lot of like PTSD and issues, and that kind of stuff is. It's like you can't wait 4 months, when you're like literally going to kill yourself, like for real. So it was.
Now that part's different. I'll say the mental health clinics that I've had experience with have been far better than the physical health.
Well, it used to be really bad. It has improved now, but it's still weeks, to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, before we go any further,
sure.
I do need to talk about here we go. Today's show is brought by the Castello Coin. Castello Coin is the art of haven. Welcome to the official website of Castello Coin. So Castello Coin is...
Yeah, tell me about it. I don't know who they are.
It's actually kind of cool. If you like art, it's pretty cool. If you missed ApeCoin, no worries. You can get Castello. Castello Coin is the bridge between traditional art world and the digital art world. They're based out of Switzerland, and they're like subject to Swiss law and everything. They did just have some art that went up in Venice. Looks pretty cool. It's a gold cube. I've got links in the description to their site and other stuff. They are listed on Bitmart, Bittrex, and other places. Let me see. So that is basically they're on Uniswap, Bittrex, Bitmart right here. They're audited. There is a video that goes over a little bit. It's the first one in history to achieve the level of recognition through unique physical artwork, which this is the first part they got. First physical art that they have out, which I said is in Venice. So check it out. It acts like a bridge between the traditional financial world of finance. The world transforms of investment and traditional art. In the new world, the world of cryptocurrencies and the digital age, resulting in global recognition, will ensure a high level of relevance and acceptance and leads to strong trust. Castello Coin also gets a strong emotional connection in the virtual market. Which is something we've talked about a lot is as far as like NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
I think bridging, the physical world into the digital world.
Oh yeah. It's hard, but it's where it gets interesting too.
Especially with validation, which I've talked with you about, like the certificates of authenticity to go along with a collectible. That's like one of the biggest things I think.
My stepdad used to be really into Rolex watches, but not real ones. He was really into counterfeit.
Oh,
Rolex.
that's fun. Okay, I was like, that's something that's kind of tough to be really into.
Yeah, and so what he would do is he had a guy in Jacksonville at the flea market.
Mm-hmm.
He'd go out there on the weekend, he'd get a Rolex, and then he'd come back to a guy he knew that ran a pawn shop in Lake City, Florida, and he'd say, "Hey man, I bought this fake Rolex. Can you tell me how it's fake? Why do you know it's fake?
Mm.
And back to the guy in Jacksonville and be like, here's what's up. My guy says this, and this, and that's why it's fake." And then you get another one. And they go back over and it's like, all right, how about now? Can you tell this one? It was like his hobby.
That is really cool. Check out Castello Coin. Like I said, I got links and everything.
It was related. I said that because of Castello Coin.
I know. Well, their NFT collection is based on
authenticity, kind
real
of thing.
world artwork made out of real gold. So that is actually pretty neat.
I've got the white paper up. I'm kind of browsing through it right here since you brought it up.
All right. So getting to today's stuff, I think first before we start off, I wanted to tell you my opinion on you, which I've thought about. Yeah, I think that you're a product of your environment. Because you do have you said you have mostly like really liberal friends.
I live in Gainesville, Florida, home of UF.
Exactly. I think if you lived in most other states, I think you'd be a very different person.
I think you're spot on. So I actually grew up in a little town outside of Gainesville. I was born in Gainesville, but I never grew up here until after I moved back from the Navy.
Mm.
And I grew up very much. Well, it's interesting. My grandparents were Democrats, lifelong Democrats, but like old school Southern Democrats that are different than they are today.
Yes, my grandfather was too.
And they were very conservative Christian people. Just like honestly, like a lot of the stuff that you find in the Republican Party, at least what's claimed to be values, demographic wise, right? Today, I would expect like, you know, they were Democrats then. I would expect them to be libertarians, Republicans, something different, you know, Pirate Party. I don't know, something different today. But I grew up in the woods, man. I was outside of a one stoplight town. So if we went into town to get stuff, we went to the town that had the stoplight, that kind of thing. I grew up hunting squirrels and growing food, and then the store was for canned or refrigerated stuff to kept. And so I've actually only ever been voting record wise. I've only actually been registered either Republican or Libertarian. I'm registered Libertarian today. Ideologically, I don't know if there's any like predefined party that sticks together that I would identify with enough to go join right now. You know, so I kind of consider myself left-leaning, libertarian, middle left, I guess. But
I think if you look at most other states, I think if you were surrounded by more of the like this militant left, you would be kind of a dick, and you're not. So you have a very open mind and common sense, and I think that a lot of it is because of where you're at and your upbringing, and even if you surround yourself with, just closed-minded libtards is the only thing that really comes to mind. You still have a lot of other freedom influences because of where you're at. But if everything was just geared toward, because I know you hate Trump, which I'm not a Trumper.
That's more of a the person.
That's how I feel. It's like the personal shit. And I always said this when he was president. I was like, I think if I disagreed with Obama, he would just kind of talk to me about it. I think if I said something bad about Trump's tie, he would make fun of my mother on Twitter. Which I think that's just but
I think Obama would have a good stand-up career if he decided to pursue that.
Yeah,
he's got the sort of charisma that he can deliver a line.
Very charismatic.
That's what won in the election, was that ability to deliver a charismatic message.
Yeah, and it's one thing I don't understand. Just as a common sense person, why Biden was elected. I mean, none of it makes sense. He was only on the Obama ticket because he was the racist white guy to appease that part of the Democratic Party.
I'll say.
I'm sorry. I said Democratic. Ooh, I am a very big believer in that words matter. And about 2.5 years ago, everyone started saying Democratic instead of Democrat. Right. And it's all Democratic. Right. So I really needed to watch myself on that. But because my grandfather, like I said, was a Democrat. My mother was a Democrat, but she was more of like that liberal 60s, kind of Democrat when the switch was going on. My grandfather,
in the 60s, the liberals in the 60s were anti-government, man.
Yeah. So and it's changed a lot. But my grandfather was like he loved Carter. I remember like being a little kid, but then he would get mad at me for watching the Jeffersons, and he wouldn't. I grew up, up north in the East, where racism was very different than it was in the South. I was shocked when I came down here, because up north it's very whispered about, and it's not blatant at all.
I only lived up north for 2 years, but I saw that too. It was in Ohio where I lived, but it was the same thing. It was talked about hush hush. Yeah, everyone acknowledged that there was an issue.
Like I remember, people still do. They say black, black.
Yeah.
It's a cuss word, or it's like a secret. And then down here, I remember I was at my ex-wife's family at their house, and her dad was a state trooper, and they were just using the N word.
Mhm.
But whenever I heard the N word, it was a curse word. It was anger. It was, it was emotional.
Or
But they,
dismissive or
yeah,
derogatory.
they were using it with no emotion at all.
Mm.
That it was just in place of the word black. Like, and
Yeah,
that was so weird to me.
that's what I grew up around.
Oh, that was creepy.
That was what I grew up around. We would go get help to for construction jobs that we would do, and it didn't phase me as like growing up. I love my parents. They're very good people. They're the kind of people that don't know they're racist. They don't get it. They just don't understand because that's just the way it's always been. And I know that's a shitty excuse, but anyway. But yeah, we would go across the tracks to pick up some people that would come do some work for cheap, and that was just like where you went to get them.
That's another thing that was weird about the South. That's a real thing. The tracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a literal thing.
We live
I
over
remember,
here. They live over there. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
you would
odd.
go to. My ex-wife wanted to go antiquing, and I wanted to. I was into sculpting, and I was in the back of a magazine. There was this ad for like supplies and stuff, and it was in what the hell is it? Calvert, Texas. And I called the dude, and I was like, you know what? Shipping is like, $50. I'm gonna just go drive down there, and it was just like quaint little town, which I never knew, but it was really huge for antiques. And there's all these southern like plantation mansions there, and I mean it's really weird because it's like this town's maybe got 1,000 people, and there's all these like little stores and the antique shops on the main strip. There's not much more than the main strip, and then there's these tracks, and there's literally like mansions over here, like I mean 100-year-old mansions, and then over the tracks it's just like a shanty town. And when I was a young buck living in this town called Gatesville, I lived. Was there tracks? No, there used to be tracks, and then the railroad moved. But I lived in this town, or in this part of town where, and I was right on the edge of where it went black, and everyone would talk when I give my address like, "Oh, it's kind of dark over there," and I didn't get it forever. Forever, I was like, "Well, there are a lot of trees there. Yeah, got a big mulberry tree in my yard." Um, but people, they meant there's black people that live there, and I didn't get it for the longest time. But it's so weird the way of thinking down in the South, and
It's weird how normalized it is.
yeah, that's the thing. You're talking about your parents are good people. It's not. That's what the weirdest thing is. There's no anger. There was no emotion. It was just like, and then I remember my ex's mom talking about, oh no, they're just a different. They're different, like genetically and culturally, and they smell different, and they're just a different breed of people. And I was like, not really, no. And that's kind of one of the things we need to talk about, which I realized when I was 5 years old that free speech was so important because it allows people like that to kind of put it all out there where you can see kind of the stupidity of some of the shit,
That's where I think free speech is important, and that's where I think a lot of my friends on the left don't get it. Right, to be able to, if what people are saying is so bad, it should be obvious to everyone, and you should let them say it on a public forum so they can be shamed and ridiculed and feel bad about themselves. Right, to say they can't say it, like, it's not, there's the difference between free speech and then speech without consequences. Free speech doesn't mean no consequences.
Right.
And that's the thing that people don't, and what I see people not understanding, like all the people that put death threats on Twitter whenever Elon Musk bought it and said, "Oh, it's going to be free speech." Oh, does that mean I can just say whatever I want? I'll show you. I'll do death threats and point out how foolish you are. And it's like, no. Elon had to come back out and say, like, I do draw the line where the law is. If there's a law, that means people.
That clear.
Yeah.
Within the law, to say whatever you want within the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised Gene Simmons came out really against it. And it's that age-old adage. He said, you can't really have free speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And that, I mean, really you can, but then, like you said, there's consequences. But I think that people have been
not be able to come back to that theater anymore. You can't just say it with no
been brainwashed to where they think like free speech is like death threats or whatever. They don't get it, which is one reason why I think censorship has been allowed to thrive as much as it has. And they're still fighting against it. I sent you that link about the stats that they're posting now. That,
I did see that, yeah.
Conservatives are gaining all these new followers. And I'd like to speak on that for a second and why I think. And that, liberals are losing lots of followers. There's going to be people that are going to cancel Twitter, but they're going to come back. They are. That's just true.
Right.
And then I think conservatives are gaining all these. They said DeSantis got like 900,000 followers in a day.
I don't know why that would be so sudden, though. That's is it that much of an internet freakout?
I'll tell you why. It's because Facebook. I was one of these people. I didn't have a TikTok until like 2 months ago or a month ago, and my girlfriend forced me to get it because she is so huge on TikTok. At the time. So, but I've like big boy, and everyone's like, dude, you gotta get on TikTok. I'm like, no, I'm not a 12-year-old girl, dude. I'm not getting on TikTok. And then there's no, I don't want to, support the Chinese government, blah, blah, blah. But the same thing was with Twitter. I didn't get a Twitter until like 2-3 years ago because I was just like, I drew the line at all the social medias. I'm like, I'm not getting a freaking Twitter. That's stupid. I have enough. I don't need a Twitter. I'm not getting a Twitter. And then, with starting the channel and everything, I really have to have a Twitter. And there's crypto Twitter, which is a different thing. So that's why I started Twitter. But most of my friends that are my age, they don't have Twitters.
Same.
Because the same thing. They're just like, nah, I have enough, man. I don't need any more. I can connect everyone on Facebook. Facebook's become really something for older people. And I think with all of the hoopla that has happened, a lot of those conservative older people never had a Twitter are like, okay, I'm going to go get a Twitter and I'm going to follow Elon Musk. Oh, I can follow DeSantis. Oh, I can. I think Twitter itself, and there is
okay. So maybe because it was in the quote unquote boomer news.
Yes, that's perfect. Boomer news. Yes.
Okay.
Boomer news and Gen X news.
That's interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine recently about that disconnect, about why there's so much of a difference in thinking besides the generational things. Of course, things are dramatically different. But I don't think older people watch YouTube videos for information. They read, and there's so much conversation going on in videos like this where people that work from home can throw it up on a tab and listen to it, or on, maybe they subscribe to podcasts or audiobooks or something.
There's still a lot of people, they would go to the, they want to work on their car. They'll go to the library, get a Chilton's book, and Xerox 4 or 5 copies of that page, bring it home, and that's how they're going to learn to,
I forget the name of the book, but I always had one I was really into Z cars for a while. I had 3 at the same time. But I would always get the one manual, the Haynes or whatever it was, because they had fucking everything you need right there, one book.
Yeah, and I don't think as many people are doing that as before, but there is definitely there's still a market for that. Our libraries wouldn't exist. But when it comes to Twitter, I can tell you that like 1,000 of my friends that I have that are real friends, like 80% of them didn't have Twitter, don't have Twitter, don't know about Twitter, don't care anything about Twitter, because it's just that limiting you on what you can post to so many characters, and it's
it's pain in the ass.
it's not TikTok, it's not Snapchat, but it's just above that, And I think a buttload of those people, are starting up Twitters and setting up Twitters.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's very likely. I like Twitter. And the reason I started getting I made an account a long time ago, but never used it because it's the same thing. I didn't care. I was like, what is this? Actually, I was sitting outside the DMV one day and I was texting somebody, and some random girl walked by and asked, are you tweeting? Because it was just getting popular. Tell me on my phone. Oh, maybe he's tweeting. Maybe I can know him on Twitter, And that's the first time I heard of it. It was like, Twitter. I tweet? I don't know. But then I went back in later and got that account that I had signed up for and was like, oh, crypto's on here. Let me go follow some people. And so following heads of industry is what I found Twitter's useful for. People that run companies, people that are influential in markets and in just like engineering solutions and things like that. Watching how they talk to each other and what concerns they have. That to me is a really good way to keep your ear to the ground, I guess, on like what's currently happening with the people that run shit.
The evolution of it has been really interesting to watch. And you have to admit that Trump legitimized Twitter in so many ways.
He used it as the official.
That's it. That's the word. That's the word.
Communication route. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, you can watch traditional news, and they'll be like the Department of whatever announced this through a tweet. They didn't hold a press conference. That's tomorrow. They literally announced, and Twitter has become.
And that's official. And you show that on the news. Yeah. It's like, there's the public. It's published on Twitter.
How much more? But because of that, how can you not admit that that's the public square now? That it has become what Musk said it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of users, right? It's got a bunch of users. But other than that, and the fact that people have used it for official publications, for official government stuff, it's still just a website. It's still just a fucking website. It's not the internet. And that's what annoys me more than anything most recently. I don't know why, but I've been on this kick about, maybe I just realized, and maybe I realized before, but it just hit me relatively recently, that I'm one of the last generations that knew what it was like before cell phones and before computers and before the internet, and the growing up in the woods eating squirrels shit, to joining the Navy to work on Tomahawk cruise missiles, to traveling the world and learning different cultures and everything. Like, I had a weird road to get to where I am right now. And I always
kind of, dude, that's terrible.
What's that?
You shouldn't eat squirrel shit no matter what. That's terrible.
No, squirrels and shit.
Yeah.
Not squirrel shit. But you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I only keep saying that just to illustrate, like, I really did have to go through all of those different ways of life. And now I'm just Computer Dave. All my friends know me as the guy that has been working on computers for 20 years and used to have a computer repair shop locally, mom and pop shop. And
I don't know if that's good or bad though, Dave. I really don't.
But I think it's good because of the experience that can't come from a schoolhouse or a book.
No, I'm talking about. I think what you went through is great. I think what I went through is great. I don't know if we're better off now because of how things are.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
People don't have those skills. We were talking. I don't know if I talked about it with you. I wanted to talk about this on World Blockchain Roundtable, but I was talking with Litecoin Lisa on our show last week, and they don't teach writing in school. They don't teach kids how to write for 20 years.
What do you mean?
They don't teach kids handwriting. Like, they don't know how to
got rid of cursive handwriting.
Yeah, they don't know how to read. That's writing. Anything else is printing. So
I see.
People don't. But this punched me in the face. In one generation, we have made everyone illiterate. They can't read cursive. They can't read it. So all of these adults, they can't read the Declaration of Independence. They can't read.
Not the original text. They have to trust that whatever print
Exactly.
version they're reading is
And I made this point about trust. They know how to sign their name. They learn how to sign their name. But you could teach someone.
How do you learn how to sign your name without being able to write, though? You just learn the letters.
That's all you
are in
learn.
your name, those letters.
It's like you learn how to say no habla español.
That's true. Yeah.
Speak Spanish? No.
Yeah.
But I know how to say that. But what if your friend say, how do I say I don't know how to speak Spanish? And he just tells you like 3 or 4 curse words. So you walk in and someone starts, talking Spanish and you're like, hey, kiss my ass and suck my balls. And you get punched in the face. And you're like, why? He's like, that guy's really mad that you don't speak Spanish, dude. It's you could literally teach someone how to sign someone else's name.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know. So,
well, now some of the letters look close enough, though. I don't know. I think that's. I get what you're saying, because I get the whole, especially right now with what's happening at DHS. I get the whole Ministry of Truth thing and like reading the original texts and how it like no, like go to the fucking museum and look at it. It's right there. Don't. The not better off part you were talking about, or the maybe not better off part, is that there is no, and maybe blockchain fixes this, but there is no, it's so easy to change shit. And then people take for granted. Yeah. Like in 1984, the Ministry of Truth had to go out, collect books, burn them, reprint them with new information, redistribute the new book, and get rid of all evidence that it used to be a different way. And now,
but also one of the biggest things we all say is do your own research. Do your own research. You and I have went through so many different avenues of doing your own research, whereas literally someone who's 25 knows how to do one thing. Is just type something in. Oh, I can't find anything. What else do I do? They don't know how to kind of dig, how to get in the car and go somewhere to find something.
That's a really good observation. I have seen that too, to the point where we did a workshop. A friend of mine did a workshop anyway, together on how to do your own research, how to do IOR. Just because it's like, okay, what does that mean? Does that just mean go on the internet and read an article and see what that says? Sorry, I'm very bad about interrupting people, so I'll just keep doing that.
Yeah, well, I was watching a movie, and I was watching Excalibur,
Nice.
And like certain parts of it, like were really, really nice. I'm like, man, I wonder how much this cost to make. And I, Alexa, how much did Excalibur cost to make? And she's like, Excalibur cost blah 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 blah. I was like, how much money did it make? And I mean, anything that popped in my head, I instantly, while I'm watching in real time, while I'm watching the fucking movie, I'm finding out. Whereas I would have had to like have written that down, and then went to the library or, called.
Check out the card catalog. Yeah.
to like, it would have been so much trouble to gain that knowledge and that information. But I could do it, and I know how to do it. Whereas if I said, Alexa, how much money did, and she's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, fuck. Well,
no, I guess nobody figured it out yet. See,
but
and there's something else. It's like, oh, I guess we don't know yet. Like we as a human, I'll just wait for somebody else to figure it out, I guess. I hate that shit too. I hate's a strong word, but I know what you're saying exactly, because I told a friend of mine the same thing. I think that I'm going to speculate what you're getting at, which is that, his son will never have a moment where he can't, in his whole life, growing up, whatever, probably, that he can't reach into his pocket, have a question, he can reach in his pocket, get some kind of answer, right? Some kind of answer, right? Some opinion of an answer, some consensus of an answer, something, whether it's Wikipedia or Google or, whatever. It's just like, it's such a different way to grow up and for your brain to evolve, for your brain to get put together.
There's a word for it. It's kind of derogatory, but I remember, like, I heard it was years and years ago, where I was like the last generation or one of to grow up without the internet. Like my high school, junior high school years, there was no internet. And like the internet came around, like AOL and all that, right after I graduated. When everything you bought, every magazine, anything had discs falling out of it. So that was like, so, but there's a word for it. And something that I just came to mind when you're talking about that is how, everyone says that, every generation is just worse and worse and terrible, but the entitlement and all that, and kids nowadays are never told no. That's kind of really feeds into it, what you said. If I want to know something, all I got to do is reach in my pocket and I know it. Even in that, they're not told no. I want to know what this is. I want to know about that.
Access to information, yeah.
You can't know. There's some things you're not going to be able to find out. You just won't know. That it's like, I can see why younger people are so fragile mentally, and how safe spaces and how everyone's on, antidepressants and everything, because literally everything has been trying to, since the push button age, everything's been geared to make life easier and easier and easier. Where now even the smallest thing,
one-click checkout, next day delivery,
it can really, really bug you. I said, "Oh man, I gotta wait a week to get this." Jeez.
Yeah.
Dude,
we just got a motherboard in that was like, unfortunately, the time we bought it, it was from Newegg. They usually ship from New Jersey, but it was like, oh, it's got to ship all the way from China. That's terrible. It was like an unheard of thing. Like it's gonna be so long.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks, but it got here in 2 weeks from China for like $5 in shipping. So it's like, dude, you got it pretty good, didn't you?
Shipping and those costs are like next to nothing. But also, like, I can remember having to go to a book that's like this big, like a Sears catalog or something, looking through it to find the section to see something that you wanted, and then at best you'd have two choices. Whereas now you have multiple websites that you can go to. Just the fact, everything leading up to the fact that you have to wait 2 weeks to get it is like a wonder. That I think it's Louis C.K. or he's like, dude, there's a computer in your pocket. It's like all these things is like super, like this wonder, and people bitch because an app takes like 8 seconds to load.
Yeah, I think that was Louis C.K. because he was talking about like, he has that thing he does,
Yeah.
That's like, oh gosh, oh.
Yeah.
Exaggerating the frustration.
It's a good bit because
he's got a bunch of good bits, honestly.
It's constantly evolving. I mean, he can keep adding to it because people are constantly complaining about shit. I think he was complaining about like an airplane because they didn't have like, Wi-Fi or something. And he was like, dude, you're flying to another part of the earth
America
in like 2 hours, while watching a movie and eating dinner. He's like, and you're complaining about it. It's just, he's like, people just lose sight of how like incredible life is. Which
he did a really good one. Same bit, different thing. He did a really good one on. He was poking fun at people that are that won't eat vegetables. They only eat meat, kind of thing. And he was just like, I think in this sketch he must have been pretending to have a conversation with God. Like God comes back, and it's like to see how just to check up on things. And this guy's like, in his bit, the guy was complaining about not having enough food. Basically, it's like too expensive to buy meat. And God was like, what are you talking about? There's just food just grows out of the ground everywhere you look. It just grows out of the ground. He's like, yeah, but it's not like, savory and fatty and delicious,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think I remember that one.
I can't deliver a joke like he can, but it was he can make fun of anything. That's not what we're talking about today, but it's a talent that comedians have. And
well,
you can't joke about anything unless
on the subject of free speech. That is something where comedians have been attacked so much because humor was such a good way to talk about like serious, topical, painful things, and deliver it in a sarcastic way.
That's my appreciation of it. Is that ability to maybe get someone to see through the veil of, someone like me, grew up in a bubble in Gainesville, joke with me about my own culture enough to be like, okay, you get a point, that kind of thing.
JDO, you have a good point. We're mentally weak. Okay, I can give you that. But we do lack moral fortitude. that is something that has
Depending on the
happened
morals.
dramatically. I can tell you right now, your parents had a lot more conviction than you do. Um, my parents had more conviction than I do.
That's fair.
Before, it's like, talk about Amazon. Amazon is terrible for this reason, it's terrible for that reason. And I was thinking about it and how they're talking about deplatforming or taking Twitter off. We're talking about killing Twitter with Google, YouTube, all that coming together and blocking Twitter basically.
Mm-hmm.
That the corporations are doing it, and how people are saying, hey, this is the point of antitrust. Bust up. Bezos said that he was in on it. So Amazon has become so huge. They've done terrible practices that are predatory. Like if you have a small business guy selling stuff on Amazon, they'll track that. They're like, hey, this guy is starting to make a serious profit with this product. Let's get this product now from this Chinese distributor. We're going to undercut it, and now we're going to take that. So they basically the platform. They let people start to make money, and then they kill it.
I would have told you if you would have told me that 3 to 5 years ago, I would have told you you're full of shit. They don't do that. Come on, man, that's bullshit. That's probably just the Chinese people that are manufacturing the product in the first place. That they just do an extra run and then resell what you've got. But I lived with. He would consider himself an inventor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where he's, really secretive about a lot of his ideas and concepts. And he would go talk to lawyers and stuff about how do I do this? And is this worth patenting? Is this patentable and is it worth it? And he went and talked to somebody who was an expert in rolling out products and using things like Amazon and stuff to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He actually got the same, and this is from a professional person that he paid money to get accurate, good information from. And he told him what you've got to do is you've got to design this, you got your CAD software, whatever, design it in a bunch of different parts and then get that manufactured in different warehouses, from different sources. They can all be in China. They can be Taiwan, China, whatever else out there that you want. But he was saying if you ever run the whole product in one order to get someone to manufacture a new invention, by the time yours is up on Amazon for sale and you have some supply to be able to ship to people, there's going to be a competing product that's exactly the same with their name on it.
Yeah.
So that is true.
What I've seen from people that were in like drop shipping and other stuff, they Amazon Basics, all those Amazon Basics, those were someone else that was being successful. That Amazon said that dude's making a shitload of money selling that. Using that, we're gonna do it. We're gonna take that from him, and then they have an Amazon Basics version of it, which is going to be cheaper than the original guy.
I did used to buy the Amazon's Choice one just to cut through like, okay, which one's got. I think they just base that on reviews.
That goes along with what I was talking about. What JDO said. If the government said, "Hey, you know what? You're right. We're going to break up Amazon," it's like, well, hold on, man. Now, they are being unfair and it's kind of crappy, but with them being so big, that shipping is free within 24, 48 hours. And I kind of like that. But so that's where your parents would have been like, yep, we're going to have a harder time, but we're going to do what's right. And I realized it because I was always, I thought I was holier than thou, but with Netflix, they had that show about like 12-year-olds twerking, and they really sexualized kids with their show. Is a huge thing.
There's a bunch of interesting shows.
In Texas,
I say interesting for lack of I don't want to choose the word.
Texas came out and they said that, hey, this is technically, considered like child pornography or putting it out. We're going to make this illegal. We're going to go after Netflix. Only when Texas did that did Netflix take it off the air. But what I should have done is I should have canceled my Netflix subscription. And I kind of did. I took the auto billing off. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give them this 3.5 weeks. And during the 3.5 weeks, they didn't pull it, but they made it. It's not in the United States. It's only in select European countries, as they still had this show. But everyone nowadays, and I think it all is tied in to that. Weak-minded is a bad term, but it's the only one I can think of. Soft is much better. How because they can pull out their phone and you can get an answer. People are never told no.
Convenience, yeah.
People are never told no anymore. That they can't fathom. I really like this product. I know they do something wrong. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to post a meme that they suck, but then I'm going to go buy it and I'm going to use it. Whereas our parents would be like, nope, we're not getting that anymore. But I love that. Nope, we can't. They did this to these people. They're terrible.
Yeah.
We're not going to buy it.
So you hit on something that I hadn't thought about in a while, and I haven't really talked to anybody about this before. So maybe I can talk to you about it here and see what you think. I think that one of the dangers of social media, Twitter, things like that, these convenient in your pocket public forums where I'll just use my example where my circles are, right? If I'm pissed off about some shit that is really like nothing my friends would care about, I'll go to Twitter and I'll just like vent and I'll like feel better after I dump a bunch of garbage and nonsense on Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. And it makes me feel better. Or on Facebook, like you know that your friends are on Facebook, and so maybe you post some shit on Facebook just to get your point out. You assume all your friends have said it, so you've done your part and voiced your opinion. But a tweet's not a vote, and anger expressed through the internet, like having such an easy outlet for your frustration and for your opinion. Before the internet and Twitter, like you would have to write a letter to get that out, maybe to your congressman, maybe to your local, government. And, maybe you got enough of it pent up to where you'd go to the polls and vote and voice that opinion there because you don't have an electronic public forum in your pocket. And so I think maybe that's one of the dangers is it makes people feel like they're involved and engaged and participating when they're not. They're opting out.
I 100% agree with you. And I think you take it one step further. And like you said, you can make yourself feel better. You can appease your rage and pat yourself on the back like, hey, I did something. I'm all right. I feel better about it. Now you don't feel so guilty giving them your money because, you made them look bad on social media when that's all they care about is, that's why they're all, we love LGBTQ and we have, with Pride Day, we've changed our logo to have a rainbow. They don't give a shit.
That's not helping LGBT. Like, I've got a lot of LGBT friends. I used to live with a gay girl named Claudia, probably the best friend I ever had in my life. When I was in the Navy, I had no friends. I forget how we even met, but it was weird because being in a foreign city, I met this person, made friends, and so her friends became my friends. I lived with gay people for like 5 years. It was great. But people that are putting a thing on their Facebook that says, I support this, I support that, you're not doing shit, man.
Exactly. You're like, I support Ukraine. No, it does nothing. It just makes you feel better and lets people know like what
political you so that you won't do anything.
You know the term Banana Republic? That's because, Dole Banana Company would hire mercenaries and kill people.
Is that where that's from? Is that really like?
Yeah.
Not questioning you, but tell me more is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So they would like go in South American countries, and they would literally like take over, and like this land, and I could say influence, but they influence governments, but by massive violence and killing people. That's why it's called a Banana Republic, because that's what it was about. It was about bananas.
Well, I knew that was what it was like about, like because of the industry that particular country was, heavy in. I didn't know it was Dole though.
That's the extent these corporations go to. So when they say, "Hey, man, we're changing our logo to have a rainbow because we're LGBTQ," no, that's not They don't care. They would kill people for money. They're going to do this because they think it's better for their bottom line. As soon as they think the political shift, the winds have changed to where it's like 55% are against it, they're going to be like, hey, kill the fags. There's no backbone. All they care about is making money.
What do you think about, this will be a fun one, right? What do you think about the Florida legislation about preventing, I guess, school teachers and staff from talking about, sexuality and the differences between boys, girls, bisexual, straight, transgender, like addressing I'll call it the evolution in sex ed, the modernization of sex ed.
That's a good term. Here's the deal. I think that I've learned that the alarmists are always right. You can't have gay marriage because people are going to want to marry kids and animals and car, and everyone's like, dude, that's stupid. This is just about love is love and blah, blah, blah. But do you know what people have wanted to try to marry and have bills they've tried to get back?
People have done a lot of weird shit, though, man.
To marry kids, they're always right, and they're nuts. They're just crazy people that want to marry their car. Okay, but I think whenever there's a big change, I think there has to be a caveat, which I've made this point for like the Patriot Act. This is just a temporary thing. I know this goes against the Constitution, but it's because of this situation. And I think the only way anything like that should be able to go through, any huge change, is if there's a caveat that it won't ever get worse. And if this is temporary, we can't, and this I think is brilliant, which they should have done, we can't renew this if everyone that voted for it is still here. So basically, that term is everyone in Congress. So you're promising the American people that this is a temporary thing. So you've made that promise. So now you can't vote to renew it because you promised that it was temporary. So if you're voted out of office, if you're gone because it's 10 years later, fine. But if there's one or two people left that voted for that, then you can't.
Other people can probably vote, but
so I think that's something that should happen. So with sex ed, I remember it's like 8th grade. It's it's not the government's business to talk about that. It's families and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, 8th grade is, good. And it should, they're like, you're going to be teaching it to kindergartners. And I was like, oh, never. The alarmists were like, you're going to want to teach it to 5th graders. And it's like, no, never. And now we're here talking about kindergartners. And there's no reason for kids to learn.
So that part's weird to me. I went through sex ed in 8th grade. Like
me too.
And
it was
I had some in high school too. I had some sex ed. I had some. I remember Rosie, my friend's mom, was in charge of like the sex ed stuff in my district.
Rosie Palm
came in and did some. Did some sex ed stuff. And I was kind of an asshole. I gave her a hard time because I thought I was being cute in class,
Mm-hmm. And that's high
school is 8th grade, and then so that's something that like I don't even know now that I think about it. I've got younger brothers and sisters. I'll have to ask them, hey, what grade were you in when sex ed, to see like what the progression was, because I didn't realize until I read something on the internet. I don't even know if it's true or not, but I heard you say it just now. Just that kindergarten is getting sex ed, and like
that's I thought was the main point of
that kind of thing
of the bill, was like, you're not going to talk to like kids about this stuff because kids don't need to know about it. They're not sexual, so they don't need to learn about sex. 8th grade is when stuff is changing and you have questions. Okay, but still, dude, we laughed about stuff. We made jokes about it. We were very immature. High school, when we were talked about it, it was a different conversation. Like people would talk about STDs. They would ask questions. There was
high school. It's like, hey, what's the odds that here's what happened. What's the odds she's pregnant? Biology teacher. Like there's different concerns.
I remember this one class, this dude sitting next to me, Jeff. He's like, "How come, like, after you have sex and you go pee, it burns really bad?" And we're all like, "What?"
Assuming that's
The
how
teacher was like,
everybody is.
frozen, dude. She was frozen. She's like, "It's not supposed to, Jeff." He's like, "Really?" Because he had a steady girlfriend who was actually his girlfriend was pregnant, so it was obvious, that he was having sex. But but it was just so funny but it was like a real moment. It was like real. Honestly, he had a question. It was he needed we didn't have the fucking internet. It's another thing.
That's
There really
true.
should
Yeah.
be. JDO makes a good point, and I would disagree with him. Like 20 years ago, some things only need to be taught in the home, and there's a lot of things that parents aren't really equipped to deal with. But you know what? With the internet, parents can do fucking anything. It's much.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
and it's also.
I like what JDO said there too. The last thing about where the line is, where JDO's line is, that's reasonable. Yeah.
Well, but also there's like if you're a Baptist, like the Baptist church could put out what they think is the best for sex ed.
Yeah, and I grew up Southern Baptist
so you
when
could
I was younger.
You could do that, Muslim, whatever you feel comfortable with, and that's, I think, we talked about this with Lisa, because of the pandemic, that so many parents were forced to do education for their kids, and this is a big thing. Like, she's choosing what she wants to teach her kid. She's going to teach her kid cursive handwriting, and her kid is going to be better for it. If there's a job, it's almost like a second fucking language. Do you know how to write in cursive? Yes, this guy doesn't. I can't believe that's actually something like learning a second language that could put you ahead.
I was surprised when I saw that. I didn't care either. I was just surprised when I saw it dropped. I was just like, oh, I guess nobody does that anymore. It's just learning in college if you want to be what do you call it?
But it's dumbing down. I think it's the dumbing down of people in general. And I made this point that form of communication could actually become like a dead language, like Latin. I can remember being a kid and knowing 20 people that spoke Latin, older people, but they like learned it in college or learned it in high school. I speak some Latin, and now I don't know one fucking person I could tell you that.
Well, we're also in the USA. I saw that when I was in the Navy too. We have it so easy. Almost, I would say 9 out of 10 places we went because we would pull in every couple of weeks to every couple of months to get supplies and stuff in a different country, and go out in town, and almost every time they would speak English. So we were spoiled. We didn't have to speak in any other languages, and most people on my ship didn't. But that's not the same like growing up in Europe or South America.
I'm not talking about Spain. I'm talking about Latin. Like
Latin. But I meant like any second language. But
how Latin has become a dead language. Yeah. I think, like, you can look at all of South America pretty much. I bet you all those kids know how to write in cursive, because technology isn't as prevalent, but it is still very prevalent. So could writing become a dead language in the next generation? And that's a crazy thought, to think about that. And I don't know. It's just a weird thing to think of.
It would have to be. Yeah, I don't know. It would have to be. I feel like it would have to be global, right? Like, I can see the ease of how long I've been sitting in front of a keyboard during my life, to where now I can just type and not really look at what I'm typing, as long as I have a mechanical keyboard. I can't do the Apple flat keyboard. I have to feel the keys. But I used to write letters though in cursive. But but I don't know. That's a good question, because maybe people just won't do it anymore because now you're typing everything.
Yeah. I
think maybe so. Go to a notary to get it cursified or something.
Which is weird to me, because, like, my last girlfriend, she wouldn't ever want to talk on the phone. I'll be like, why don't you want to like talk on the phone? She's like, just text me. And she would want to text like all the time. And it's annoying to me to text. I would just rather call and talk to someone, you know. But it's an old person thing. Only old people want to talk on the phone. I mean, my son's like, why are you calling me? Are you a psycho? Why are you calling me?
That's my sister. She's always like, thinks it's an emergency. If I call, it's like, oh, what's wrong?
Yeah,
You call? What's wrong?
so
I was. My
it's where the
nephew
people
asked me why I hold my phone like this to my head. He was like,
yeah,
why do you put your phone to your head like that? And
people
I
are
was like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't. There's probably microwaves or something.
people are communicating more with words, typing them out, but they're not writing, and it's just a very odd, combo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
No, they can't, and I made that point.
This is where we
Within
started,
one
actually. Yeah.
generation,
Just come full
within one
circle on that.
generation, we've made everyone in America illiterate to writing, where they can't read those documents, they can't read the Bill of Rights, and they have to trust people to tell them what they say and what they mean, which is just nuts.
Prime example of that is on. I've got two really good threads on Facebook that are talking about Elon and stuff. I won't search them up right now, but basically, like all of this stuff about uh, like it is true that there was some involvement where Elon's dad owned a share of an emerald mine or something, right?
Yeah, an emerald mine. Yeah,
Yeah, and so but there's like the way people are talking about is like during apartheid there were these emerald barons that
yeah,
were doing union busting and slave labor to build their wealth, and like it's such an exaggerated like yeah, he was better off than than a lot of people in South Africa, but the exaggeration that comes from there was a fucking Onion article that claimed that he got his money through apartheid, and
mm-hmm.
that turned into an urban legend, which turned into something else we talked about earlier, which was people not knowing how to do their own research. And so you read something, and that's research, right? You go on your phone, you read Google News, Apple News, whatever news, and it says something on an article from a newspaper that you've heard of that's been around for a while, and you're like, oh yeah, I researched that. I looked at the paper article. You know what I mean? So like even my mom, I say even my mom, she's older, so of course she does, but she watches all the different like angles that she can. She'll watch Fox News, she'll watch NBC, she'll watch CBS, and she'll see what they say about the same shit, the same news item.
Which is cool. That's good.
So anyway, I don't know what my point was there, except that yeah, people think they're doing research when they're not.
I think part of that though is you can't trust anyone anymore.
And maybe if they don't know how to write, they can't.
But there used to be like they would do fluff shit and they could get away with some stuff, but on important stuff, you could trust them. But when it comes to like the Steele dossier and other things that are Hunter's laptop, I mean these things are huge, and they were suppressed or they were made up, and it's obvious that there's no one. Who was it? Russell Brand, which if you're not following Russell Brand, everyone should. He talked about how journalists used to be like proud that they were on the outside throwing rocks at the establishment, and they were
that was like a feather in their hat.
Yeah, and now they're on the other side and they're throwing rocks at the people trying to protect what they used to go after, and it's very obvious. So I used to tell people, dude, you can't just watch. You can't just watch Fox. You can't just watch MSNBC. You can't watch CNN. I used to go further than that and say, hey, you can't watch anything from just the United States. You have to go outside. You have to watch the BBC. You have to watch Al Jazeera. You have to watch all these different, things to kind of find the truth.
I'm glad you shouted out Al Jazeera because I've been so impressed with their English channel.
Mm-hmm.
If you read their articles, the only reason I notice this is because American media has gone so opinionated and like directed on what you like. Here's what
There
the
is
truth
no
is
news
and what you
anymore.
should
It's
think.
all opinion.
You read Al Jazeera, and it's like how you used to read the news here, which is like, according to this person, and based on information from this source.
Well, there
Not
used
saying,
to be
saying
news.
here's what
There's no
that's what I'm
news. The
getting at.
news used to be a guy who would talk about something and say this happened, and now it's someone who says, I feel this way about this. This is what happened. It's literally an opinion before the news. It's an opinion about the news. It's not just this is the news. This is what happened. I have no opinion on it whatsoever. Here's the information about what happened, and it's not like that anymore. I'm very disappointed in RT. I was like, I just tell people watch RT. I would trust the Russian television more than I would, CNN any day. And dude, as soon as
It was time. This Ukraine shit changed that.
As soon as Ukraine went down, dude, they were like, it was
Mm-hmm.
propaganda. Total propaganda.
They're required to. This is why I love Kaspersky antivirus, but I'll never use it because they're in Russia and they're required. This is the reason Telegram moved out of Russia. They went to Dubai because you can't trust any technology company that's in Russia or China, for the same reason. Not the topic, I guess, but for sure, RT had to pivot. They had pivot. They had to just say what they had to just publish what they were told to publish.
Yeah,
what it was.
It was blatant. I mean, it was like, oh, Putin, glorious Putin has and and the thing is, when it comes to Ukraine, I agree with Russia 100%. Not, I don't think they should have done what they did, but I agree with all their reasons. NATO made an agreement that they wouldn't expand, and they did nothing but break that agreement for decades. They literally, we pushed Russia to have a Cuban Missile Crisis, where Ukraine was Cuba, and I mean Cuba. They were.
Look at what we did when Russia showed up on our doorstep on Cuba. We freaked the fuck out.
Sending missiles to Cuba, and we said we are going to blow up the world. We're going to kill you. We're going to kill us. We're going to kill everybody if you don't not do that. And we did the same thing in talking about bringing Ukraine into NATO, and Russia said we're going to attack NATO. If we would have attacked Cuba,
that was literally their line. And you start trying to bring Ukraine into NATO, that's our line.
All the declassified shit that has come out, we almost went to nuclear war. We came so close to ending.
Where did you read that?
What?
Oh, you talking about in the 70s?
Yeah, in the 70s. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We came crazy close.
I know. I learned about that. That was like, I spent 9 years in the Navy, and I learned about a lot of shit because I worked on cruise missiles. And I learned about over the horizon, cruise missile operations and conducted some. And that was one of the things we learned was the history of like shit that's happened before that you might look out for. And one of them was literally the moon. Like there was some artifacting or some shit with the current technology where it was either the moon or it was like some sort of celestial thing, and it caused like a misreading that it seemed like there was an intercontinental ballistic missile coming over the horizon from the US to Russia or something. And it was a Russian, whatever they call their boss over there, that was like, no, don't fight. It doesn't make sense that it would only launch one missile. So they like called it off. It was like, it has to be, this can't be right. So there's been a few times I think that have come so close.
And that's another thing I like
on fire over there. And a lot of good points too.
Ukraine is, because we stand up and like, hey, that's wrong for you to do that to another country. And journalists actually said, well, haven't you been doing that to this country, that country, this country here? It's like, hey, we're the United States. Chill out, man. This is Russia. Russia, that's wrong.
Nobody else can do that but us.
Yeah, and that light got shined on that for a very short period of time. but it was shined on that, and people don't, Americans especially, we don't want to take responsibility for the bad shit that we do. That's why Assange is where he's at. That's why we're allowing that, because we don't want to take responsibility for the shit that we've done. When it comes to slavery or reparations, which every country did, in Africa, every country in Africa, black people sold slaves to white
to the
slaves.
U.S., for example. Well, it wasn't the U.S. then, but
we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that.
Actually. But you're right. But I don't think that just if you're going to say that just because
that's my
everyone
point.
did it,
we won't talk about that. That we'll talk about how that's wrong. Things that the U.S. is doing right now, we can't talk about. But we could talk about certain. It's so obvious that it's that it's controlled. What we're going to talk about and what's okay to complain about, and it's stuff that's designed to divide us. If the United States came together like in the '60s, somebody made a comment, and I was talking about how one of the worst things for government is when white people who were taught their civic, it had a class called civics, where you were taught civil rights. When white people saw what was happening to black people on TV, they united with black people and they changed everything when it came to civil rights. And then the government stopped teaching civics because they were like, well, that's a problem.
So this happened.
Literally now you have to pass government class. It's called government in order to pass, get your diploma, your high school diploma. You have to take government, not civics. It's so blatant, and now everything is designed to stop people from uniting, because that's one of the last times we had real change in the United States.
I wonder if, here's what I hope. I wonder if the revolution in cryptocurrency and blockchain being a way to make it harder to cheat, lie, cover up the past, things like that. I wonder if that will be as much of an impact, maybe even more, I don't know, than what you saw when you had the first televised war in Vietnam, or when you had, like you said, the civil rights movements where people could see what was happening on television broadcast to them. Now, of course, there weren't as many advanced techniques to manipulate but what people were seeing when they did see it. But I wonder if, like, assuming where we are now is that, like, what you see is a facade, it's what you're told to believe, it's the world that's painted in front of you to believe so that you can be more productive and get along and make money for them. Will blockchain fix that? And if that's the case, does that cause chaos and revolution and war? If what's happening with Twitter, what happened with Donald Trump. So me, somebody who, I should not invite this, but if you look far enough back on my Twitter, you'll see a very angry, lashing out, regurgitating things that I've seen and read, accusatory, like the kind of shit that I don't like seeing people do today. And one of the things was Trump. I fucking hated Trump more then than I do now, right? I couldn't understand how anybody could, like, I hadn't even thought about a lot of stuff. But I guess here's what I'm getting at. Because if this happened to me and I was able to see Trump get banned from Twitter, and then I was able to see myself get censored from Twitter by just literally sharing an article from a newspaper about Hunter Biden, and asking, has anybody else seen this? What do you think? Not saying, like, here's information that's true, or can you spread this to your friends? It's like asking questions like, hey, anybody else seen this shit? And then I'm censored. I'm not allowed to say it. That sort of thing started to open my mind a little bit to be like, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe there is some fuckery going on here, and it's not all, I've been thinking maybe it's not all conspiracy theory since Edward Snowden. That was my, once he came out with what he came out with, I was like, okay, I can never question anything and dismiss it as a conspiracy theory ever again. Like, conspiracy theories were like, oh shit, it's true. But I wonder if that enlightening, or that kind of illustration of the problem, where it's in front of everyone to see. I don't think that the pandemic was a plandemic, but I do think that it was taken advantage of at the very least.
Yes.
And it's like something that did happen was a lot of people got ruined, but a lot of people also got to see the man behind the curtain sort of thing,
Yes.
where it was so fucking obvious what was going down, especially when like they were cutting everyone checks to shut them up about how much money they gave to their buddies, and they're
people
like,
who haven't thought critically for years had to kind of work that in their brain. Like, why do I have to wear a mask when I enter the restaurant, but I could take it off 5 feet later? What's the difference? Why can I be out until 8 p.m. and then we can't go out after 8 p.m.? Does something change with the virus? And it's like just common sense questions, but people haven't questioned authority.
Can I give you an answer you won't like? It's a very good friend of mine. I talked to her about this a lot because we grew up differently, and we have different perspectives, and she's even more left than I am. And and I'm like, what about what you just said? What about like what gets me is not the rules, it's the lying about the point of it, right? It's the like the insult to intelligence whenever you lie to them about why you're making rules and regulations and lies, And so she said to me a couple of times, like, well, a lot of people can't be trusted to make the right decision, and a lot of people won't think it through properly, and they'll just act on impulse. So we have to just tell them something they'll believe, so they'll go along with it, so that we can all be better off. How you like that?
No, I don't.
Right. So that's an argument, though. That's an argument. I'm not saying that it's a good argument or a bad argument. It's an argument, and I would much prefer to talk to somebody like that who I disagree with, and I think you do too, than someone who's just going to say, "Well, I'm not even going to talk about it because what I say is right."
That's another thing that we talked about. People are just like you said, you don't know how to deal with someone who's like, "No, you're wrong, and I'm not even going to talk about it." Like the only thing I could think is
start there. Yeah,
exactly. Hold the mirror up to him and be like, "Hey, this is what you're saying. This is who you are. This is what you sound like."
Because how does that help your cause at all?
It's just like dude. This is what you sound like. For me, when Alex Jones got taken off, it was so obvious and blatant. But there's so much. People hate so much. You said hate's a strong word, and people don't think that anymore. People throw around rape, and they throw around Nazi, and they throw around hate, and a lot of terms which, when I was a kid, was a serious fucking thing. A neo-Nazi was a skinhead, was someone who was would do violence to you in the train station. If they could get you alone. It was rape was a rape. It wasn't somebody brushing up against you or smacking you on the butt. It was very, very different. And
this is why I say I'm like center left, because like stuff like that I feel like is a logical. Yeah, they should all be prosecuted, but you should identify the difference.
Exactly. And when Alex Jones got taken off, some people got it. Some people are like, far left people are like, hey, this is not cool. And what people need to know, if they can do it to one person, they can do it to anyone. And everyone's like, no, it's just different. And I think we have to kind of use that extreme and just look at it like murder. Like, hey, the government's going to kill Alex Jones. And there would be some people like, good. Be like, so you're condoning murder just because of someone, something you disagree? And it's that if people, and I honestly feel that a good portion of people that were like, yeah, ban it, would have been like, yeah, kill him. And I think people have gotten to that moral decay and
Hmm.
that this massive hatred. Because you brought up Trump, people hate him
Hmm.
so much that have no connection to him. There are people in other countries that I've seen on YouTube and talked to. It's like, oh, I hate Trump and Trump. I was like, dude, you're
You know what I hate more than Trump?
Scottish, you're
I hate,
British, you
I
know.
hate, I hate, I hate, I hate people that don't that love Trump that don't see what I feel is obvious.
And that's another thing, you know. And that's
Using the word
something
hate again, but
that's
that's
something I
just
wanted
because
to
it's simple
hit
to
on.
use.
I wanted to hit on that because this us versus them mentality, like I was saying with the Alex
Yeah,
Jones thing,
let's talk about
that
that. Yeah,
that it has become where people don't identify the issue or talk about the issue. Say, hey man, Biden just did this. This is terrible. And then someone says, yeah, but Trump did this. It's the same thing, or it's 7.3% worse. And like that's the end of the argument. That's not the fucking end of the argument. You're like, okay,
yeah,
that
but because someone else did it, end of
yeah.
argument.
And with
Yeah.
Trump, it was like, well, Obama did it. Hey, these kids are locked in cages. It's terrible. Trump, why have Trump locked these kids in cages? It's terrible. Those cages were built by Obama.
Who was it that?
Argument. That's the
Yeah,
argument.
yeah. Who
We
was
should
it on World Blockchain Roundtable that was talking about precedents? It's probably Joe. It's probably Joe
Mhm.
talking about like how because he has this really cool idea that laws should expire. You should have to pass them again after a certain period of time, which is similar to what you were saying. Is like you shouldn't be able to pass them again if the same fucking people that passed them the first time are there. That kind of thing.
Right.
But he also said something about what was I just talking about with yeah, I don't know. I just lost it.
I know. I was talking
I said who was talking about
precedent.
a precedent. Yeah, yeah. And so that's basically what you're talking about is a social precedent, right? Where you have legal precedent where it's like, okay, the law is this, and the law says that the Constitution is this, and the extra laws say that. But then there's precedent that's like, that's true, but this one person did this, and this one judge said that. So, huh?
You know, you using those terms has really kind of given me a revelation. Everything is now treated like it's a court, like a courtroom.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, this is wrong that this person did it. And you could say, but here's where the thing is. You could say, yes, my side is doing that, but your side did this, and it was the same thing. So now my side is justified. But they
Right.
won't say that. They won't say that it's justified because it's still wrong. Because it was
It
wrong, and that's what I think
is.
we need to do. I think, like I said, I think words matter.
It's too binary as
I
well.
think people need to say, "Hey, man, it's wrong to lock kids in cages, and kids are locked in cages." That's it. And then don't say anything else.
Yeah. If we're in a shitty situation because of a lot of things that we supported in the past and we thought were good have led to this, that's like a sunk cost fallacy. Oh, we've worked so hard to get this far. It can't be bad.
Which
No,
I've,
it
I've
might
noticed. I've
be.
noticed that when people do that, though, like you could say, "Hey, man, kids are in cages, being separated from their families, and this is wrong." People are like, "Yeah, well, Trump did it," and I'm like, "Who?" Trump. I was like, "Who?" Oh, the old president before.
Right.
What does he have to do with it? I said
We used
the
to call,
is wrong.
we had a
They're
name
like,
for
yeah,
that.
but Trump. I'm like, why do you keep talking about old presidents? You're talking about Washington next? What?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, stop it.
We used to call that, we would get somebody transferred onto the ship that was just spent 4 or 5 years on their previous ship.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have different customs on our ship. We had a different command, a different commanding officer, different local rules on our command. And there's always somebody who would be like, oh, well, on my last ship, we did it this way. Well, on my last ship, we did it that way. And we would always say, well, this is not USS last ship. This is how we do it here. That's not where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. My uncle used to say something really, really good that would just shut me up about that. It was like, well, it's like, well, in Germany, well, in Italy, we did this. And I was like, well, this is America, Sean, so shut up and do it. Um, That's the thing, JDO. You're talking about what's the difference between locking kids in large cages and locking kids in large rooms? That's
I mean, is the large room their house though, with their
no, but
families there?
that's an actual dialogue. Whereas he didn't bring up any president, anyone, anything.
Oh yeah, right. Right. That's a question that you can ask and have a conversation about.
Right. And whereas before, you don't have the conversation because you start talking, well, Trump did this. Well, Obama did this. No, Obama did the cages, not really Trump. And then it's like no one's fucking talking about the actual issue. And I think that's what we need to start doing is just talking about the issue and not even allowing, because people have become, it's so us versus them that it doesn't matter if something's wrong. It just matters if someone else did it, and you can not take responsibility. You know,
Yeah.
And if it's wrong, your side's doing it, then your side is wrong.
Yeah.
We can just
it's not a sports team. It's not a football team. It's real fucking life with real like life and death consequences for a lot of people.
If you remember when we were younger, it was like Republicans and Democrats, left versus right. The differences were so small.
You would still have dinner together. You would still hang out.
Major issues,
yeah.
On major issues, we're Americans, and it's not like that anymore. I mean, there's issues and be like, hey,
this is what I was hoping you would get into. Yeah,
this will hurt our country. Well, it just depends on what side you're on. You know, there is no more unity where it's like, you know, it's us versus, you know, them on the level of food stamps or this thing or that thing. But anything that's like a major thing, everyone was 100%. And now you can look at voting. You're not voting for a person. Before it used to matter. I have a family and these are my kids, and now it's just a party. Because that person is going to vote whatever their party votes. You have 100 people in a room. You're going to have so many different opinions. There's going to be people that hate chocolate. There's going to be people that hate hamburgers and cheeseburgers. There's going to be people that hate puppies. There might, well, maybe a couple. There's people that hate cats. Whereas if you look at Congress, it's literally 100% on one side and 100% on another side. And things are now decided with one or two people.
Yeah, and it's these binary. I know we live in a binary world. We live in a digital world, but the loss of analog, the loss of dynamic range in conversation, the loss of granularity, of gradient. It has to be one way or the other. It can't be some kind of weird mix in between.
Yeah.
When we reach the point in the U.S. where we can't have open discussions about important issues, we are done. Yeah.
Yeah, and that does seem where we're at.
Hey, David Coleman showed up. Cool. What's up, dude?
And term limits, term limits are hilarious because it's like people could talk about how they're for term limits, but they're not voting for them. It's not happening. I mean, everyone's like, I've been here for 35 years and I want term limits. I sure do. Don't fucking run. You know what I mean?
If you really want term limits, don't run again. Yeah. I remember, speaking of actually not speaking of that at all. For some reason, I was just reminded of, I really wanted to vote for Andrew Yang during the last election. And I remember not having an opportunity to, as a Floridian, they didn't get here yet until all of a sudden Biden was third place or something. And then they went through North Carolina and then all of a sudden everybody dropped out and Biden's the one, Yeah. So I don't know why I just thought about that, but that was something else. A lot of people that I know didn't want, a lot of people that registered Democrats that voted for Biden didn't want Biden. Fucking hate Biden. Don't want fucking Biden. And I saw bumper stickers that were
I don't know anyone
Biden, but this is bullshit.
I don't know anyone that loves Biden. I know people that loved Obama. I know people that loved Trump.
Well, even Obama administration, we were making fun of that guy as the vice president.
I have a friend, Todd. We've been friends for 30 some years. At summers, I used to work up in Nacogdoches at his dad's car lot. I mean, was part of the family. That man has never told me that he loves me, ever. And he was talking on the phone, and he said, Trump's coming back. He's going to win. And you know, I love that man, Sean. I'll tell you right now, I love him. I love Donald Trump. I don't mind saying it. I'm like, dude, you've never told me you love me.
I feel like that is the result of somebody who felt so underrepresented for so long.
Yeah, and Michael Moore made that point. You know that Trump was the grenade. But man, I'm losing my train of thought now.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah. Now, like,
we had that.
So I'll go ahead and
it's gone. It is gone. You know, people are so. Well, also, what you're. Oh, yeah, I remember. You're talking about voting for Andrew Yang. I wanted to vote for Tulsi Gabbard and also Mary.
I would have loved to have Tulsi Gabbard. Yes. We could have had so many, like, the options. We had options. There were decent, okay-ish options. There were some. Like, we didn't want any of them, I guess. I don't know.
but nobody loved Biden. And the fact that he got more votes than any president in history, and more votes than Obama, who people loved, more votes than Trump, who people loved. That's a question that has been raised all of this drama.
Well, here's where I am on how the votes got there, why it was the way that it was, what's up with the election fraud and all that. My take on that is, of course, there was election fraud. There was election fraud last year. There was election fraud in the Trump administration when they got elected. There was election fraud in the Obama administration when they got elected. Yeah, there's fucking election fraud. Hillary Clinton herself said it was a different country. Of course, it wasn't the U.S., but she said, and she was talking about somebody who got elected in a foreign nation, and she said, fucking, for some reason in an interview, I don't know why she would have said this on camera, but maybe she thought the mic was off and it was before it. I have to go look it up. But she said, if we would have wanted him to win, we would have made that so. We would have engineered it. We would have orchestrated it, whatever her words were. But she was saying, if we wanted him to win, we would have used our American influence to make sure that the candidate that we wanted to win was the one who wins. And so if you're bragging about that capability 1 year, and then 5-10 years later, you're saying, no, we don't have that capability, you didn't lose the capability. You know, I mean, if anything, you improved and honed and enhanced it. So I think that anybody thinks there wasn't election fraud is out of their mind. There's at least some, and this is the binary thing where I can't even talk to people that was like there was no election fraud. Okay, there wasn't as much that was claimed, right? Maybe it was exaggerated how much election fraud there was. Maybe my pillow guy doesn't know what he's talking about when he brings a bunch of like hacker evidence that somebody gave him to a conference and invites a bunch of forensic analysis. Forensic analysis.
But didn't it brings us back to that point that we made?
Like there was some, right? Don't be so fucking binary.
If you're so scared of what this person is saying that you're going to silence it, that really just screams that it's true. And Joe made this point, which was like profound. Remember he asked us, can you guys remember any time in history where there was something that a view or something that was there that was trying to be suppressed by one person, by one group, that didn't end up being true? We were all stumped whenever, throughout history, whenever one group was trying to silence something from coming out where it wasn't true. And that's the biggest alarm for me. Like Russell Brand made the point about cryptocurrency. He said, now with the stuff that's going on in Canada and all these governments are coming out talking about how bad cryptocurrency is, now that made me wake up. That made me change my opinion. Now I think, maybe there is something to this, and these people are scared.
I didn't watch that, but I saw an article about how Russell Brand had sort of like seen the light with crypto, and it took it. That's where I think a lot of people that are on the extremes have come maybe a little bit to the middle. And maybe it's more of the left has come a little bit to the middle than the right coming to the middle. I don't know. But
because I think the right has been a lot more validated than the left has been in the past 2 years.
Recently, I would say so. just would like, regardless of opinion and what you think the way the world should be and how the government should be organized and what they should pay for or not and all that stuff, the right has definitely, if you look at it, just from a political science, like specifically, here's the facts of what happened, and okay, validation is there.
If you look at the left's conspiracies and the right's conspiracies over the past 10 years,
this is why I love blockchain.
On the right, yeah.
Talking about history, recording history in real time. Yeah. This is why I love blockchain. I talked this a little bit about to Joe about this with Den.Social. Is like because everything on Den is on chain, and everything is proven even outside of DragonNet out to both Ethereum and Bitcoin. So it's on 3 different blockchains. So it's very, very fucking difficult to say, if you have a piece of data there that you posted on Den, it's difficult to say, no, that's not what I said, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so since we can sort of like catalog and I guess we'll record history in real time, I want to get every possible type of conspiracy theorist that has a category to have a layer on Den, to where there's a category or something. Maybe it starts out as one conspiracy things. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
we could do research and do a show on that.
But here's what I'm saying. Someone's right. I don't know who's right, but some of these crazy conspiracy theories are right. They're correct. You know what I mean? And I want to know who the fuck it is. So let's put it all on chain. Let's put it all provably there.
The word conspiracy theory was made up by the CIA to discredit people that were putting out information that was contrary to what they were doing. That's kind of a big deal. It's in itself.
You want to talk about conspiracy theories left and right?
Really I'll start. We can't on the show.
I'll start for one. Let's go through one because it was asked. On the right, I've seen some crazy shit like all Democrats are pedos and they torture and adrenochrome drink the blood of kids and babies.
Don't say those words. But yes, right? Not all, but a lot.
So there's a conspiracy theory on the right. What kind of stuff on the left is? Let's just do one. There's one. There's an example of something that I feel like is looked at as a crazy conspiracy theory, and that the news outlets and the late night shows will pull that up and show people like, here's why the right is crazy, because they believe all of this shit. Now, some of it has actually interesting validity behind it, which is
when you look at that, though, what is the difference between a conspiracy theory and just the race is wrong? What's the other word? Like bigoted, like all Republican or everyone on the right is a racist.
It's the blanket statement. The problem is the blanket statement,
or is that just bigoted?
It's some people on the right are racist, but then you make it a blanket statement.
We're talking about what is the less conspiracies.
Right.
Conspiracy, or would that just be considered bigoted?
What was it? If everyone's racist?
Everyone on the right.
Oh no. Okay. So that's. I would say conspiracy theory would be. You could probably say systemic racism is a conspiracy theory. Like if by definition, because if you look at everything about
a lot of systemic stuff with like the police,
the origin of police.
I would say those are less conspiracies,
stuff like that. So that could be a conspiracy theory. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a crazy one, but it's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, that cops exist to enforce basically. Oh, we don't have slaves anymore, but we need cops now to enforce like classes of people, and we'll make the laws such that the people that we don't like will be most often those who will commit the crime because of their background and because of their lifestyle and culture and their poverty and their this and that.
It would be a good show to do because Joe's always wanted to do a show on conspiracies. We could do a show on left and right conspiracies. That would be kind of cool.
Or just conspiracies. But one thing I want to say while we're still here, anyway, is you and I obviously have had at this point hour and a half conversation, right? I would hang out with you any day and consider you a good friend. Like if I knew you personally at home, Sean's a friend of mine. You're one of my online friends. I have offline friends and online friends. Too many people are pointing at the other side and saying they're the problem. The other citizens, the other people, the other Americans, the other humans that are living in the same system together. We're all living in the same system together. We've got different ideals and priorities. Some of us live in inner cities. Some of us live in suburbs. Some of us live in the woods or in the desert or in the canyon or in the Badlands or fucking whatever. Those are extreme examples, I guess. But too many people, too many people are pointing at other citizens and saying, you should be locked up and you are the problem, right? You are the issue. And I think that is a classic divide and conquer situation, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things where if I feel like you know, we should definitely not have to pay for healthcare. We should not have to pay for roads. We should not have to pay for fucking tolls, first of all. We should not have to pay for a lot of things that taxes pay for, you know? Maybe I think that taxes are great as long as they're handled well, which is why I like Bitcoin. Because if the government used Bitcoin, I could see which bombs and which babies we killed with my tax dollars, you know? So like, let's say I believe in taxation. That's great.
That's a big thing that Joe said it, but when you talked about Ukraine and how they were accepting donations for crypto, we're like, it's really weird that crypto is being used to fund a war. It's just so odd. It is odd. It is.
I don't think. God damn it! This is. Sorry for my language, but this is like there's so many conversations we could branch out of from here, because I would love to talk about how I don't think Putin saw it coming. I don't think he saw a lot of stuff coming, and it was kind of a wake up call. He has been like he was in Eastern Germany stationed. He was in okay, he has access to the internet, but his perspective from very young has been a certain view on the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you look at his officers, and apparently I've heard this, I haven't read it, but if you look at the officer's handbook, it says like, you are the Russian Federation officer, whatever, is the last line of defense between the New World Order and the yada yada.
This New World Order.
Yeah, all that stuff. I gotta read it. I gotta go read it. I haven't, but there's a bunch of weird, interesting shit going on for sure.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot. Like I said, we could do a lot more shows. Maybe we should. Maybe we should do like a weekly thing.
My wife just started listening. She said you might want to take care of your offline wife. I'm gonna go pick her up from work.
You are?
Yeah, at some point.
You are there, bro. So I was like, it's starting to kick in. He's getting loose. All right. Well, you guys take care of hanging out there. Everybody.
It's fine.
Remember to comment when this goes, after the live thing, so you can be registered to win some crypto. Maximum. See, you can't say maximum age limit because that's ageism.
There's a minimum age limit.
You son of a bitch. You're right. There is. Check out Castello Coin. Links are all below, and remember to comment so that you are registered. Check out Den.Social. Go over there. Dave has tons of shows all the time. Always doing interviews. He's always over there talking to people. Good conversations. And check us out on the World Blockchain Roundtable on Thursdays on Dragon Den at 11 Eastern Time. So that is it. You guys take care. I'll see you all in the next video.
Thanks.